With 2025 officially coming to an end, I'm starting a new tradition on this channel where I close out the year ranking my top 50 roller coasters that I've ridden. As you saw by that title, this is the second part of that venture, being my top 25 roller coasters. If you haven't already seen part 1, being number 50 through number 26, I highly recommend you go check it out to see all of the awesome coasters that narrowly missed this list, and then come back to watch this, but if not, that's okay too. Now, if you've already watched part 1, you know the drill, and feel free to skip the intro and stats, or just stick around to support the channel. I'm cool with either. But for those of you who haven't, 2025 was by far my most successful year when it came to riding coasters, as I started this year having ridden 78 different roller coasters and am now finishing the year with 213 coaster credits. I did a ton of traveling this year, and even though my bank account might be hurting a little bit, I had so much fun doing it, and so I have zero regrets. In my lifetime as a coaster enthusiast, I've ridden coasters from the Midwest, Northeast, Southeast, and even West Coast of the United States, but I am missing a few big ones like all of the Florida parks except for Disney World, and I'm also missing Texas, and I've never even left the United States, so there's so many other coasters for me to get on. But don't you worry, I'll be getting to all kinds of different rides soon. And if you guys enjoy this video, make sure you leave a like and subscribe for way more coaster content. And real quick, before we dive into this list, I just want to say that these are my personal opinions, and I'm sure you guys will not agree with all of them, which is exactly why they're just opinions and not facts. Everyone has unique ways to rank coasters, and I'll do my best to explain why I've placed each ride where it is. Feel free to share your opinions and thoughts in the comments below, but let's try to keep it civil because at the end of the day, we're all just comparing roller coasters for the fun of it. Now, without further ado, let's get into this video. Again, if you didn't see part 1, here are some quick stats from 2025. These stats are all coming from the Log Ride app, which I highly recommend to any coaster or theme park enthusiast. Now this year I rode 171 different roller coasters with a total of 574 coaster rides. I went upside down 881 different times on roller coasters, and I know that's accurate because I log my ride right after I get off every time. I also traveled 391 miles while on coaster track this year. My most ridden coaster of the year was El Toro at Six Flags Great Adventure, racking up 33 rides in just 2 days. Now let's dive into the top 25 best roller coasters that I've ever ridden. Starting off the list at number 25, we're going to my home park and place of employment, Kings Island in Mason, Ohio, for my favorite Great Coasters International wooden coaster, Mystic Timbers. Opening 8 years ago in 2017, this woody still runs ridiculously smooth to this day. Through its amazingly paced 53 mile per hour or 85 kilometer per hour and 3,265 foot or 995 meter track length. This is one of the best paced coasters that I've ever ridden, as it feels like it does not slow down, relentlessly offering airtime hill after airtime hill, which if you have some room will send you flying. I will say most of the hills offer floater airtime or this decent flowjector airtime. I wouldn't really say it's strong enough to be ejector on most of the hills, but it is still awesome. These little S-bend hills are phenomenal, mixing sharp laterals with airtime, and the pitch black night rides on this thing are pure bliss. Of course, the shed was overhyped back in 2017, but I do think it's so much nicer than sitting out on the sun in the brake run, and it is cool theming at the end of the day. And who doesn't love a wooden coaster themed to, well, wood. Staying at my home park for number 24, we actually have the roller coaster that I've worked at since 2023, Orion. Opening in 2020, this 287 foot or 87 meter coaster is often criticized for not being a giga coaster since its height doesn't reach 300 feet, but the drop down into the ravine is 300 feet or 91 meters tall. And since the drop is what you actually feel on the ride, this is absolutely a giga coaster in my opinion. I'll always have a soft spot for this coaster because I love working it, even if it does have some stupid downtimes, and the crew has brought me so many of my great friends. I do think it's a little underrated, and if you saw part 1, you know it is actually my favorite of the 2 blue giga coasters in Ohio. I credit this to its amazing flowjector airtime on that 85-degree 300-foot drop, and its awesome sense of speed hitting 91 miles per hour or 146 kilometers per hour. Also, the speed hill and final little sideways airtime moment are both super strong and some of my favorite airtime moments in all of Kings Island, and in my opinion, some of the best airtime that B&M has ever put on their roller coasters. Now, I do wish this coaster was a little longer and lower to the ground, like another B&M giga coaster that we'll talk about a little later, but I mean, who doesn't? I understand given the rising prices of steel in 2020 and the fact that people will come to Kings Island no matter what, the coaster's layout does make sense, so I try not to hold a grudge. It is still a really fun roller coaster. At number 23, we'll take an hour-and-a-half drive down south to Louisville, Kentucky for Kentucky Kingdom, where you'll find my least favorite Rocky Mountain Construction iBox coaster, Wind Chaser, formerly known as Storm Chaser. Now I know I said it's my least favorite RMC iBox, but that doesn't mean it's not elite, because this ride is awesome. From that floaty barrel roll down drop to all of its great moments of ejector airtime, this ride is always impressive. I love the trick track double up, and when this thing is running good, it low-key hurts because the airtime is so strong. The rides I got on it this season in 2025, it did feel like it was running much slower than when I rode it back in 2023, but who knows, maybe I just got a worse ride on it. In the future, I'm always going to try to make it down to Kentucky Kingdom for this coaster because any RMC is worth the trip. At number 22, we have our first and only defunct roller coaster to crack my top 25. This being the legendary Top Thrill Dragster. Now I never got the chance to ride King Ka, but I'm sure I would have loved it because going 0 to 120 miles per hour or 193 miles per hour in about 4 seconds was mind-blowing. And even though this coaster really only had one element, that 420-foot top hat was so mesmerizing. I only managed to get 2 rides on this beast, but both times it was pure adrenaline for the entire 17-second experience. And I wish I could experience the best launch on Earth one more time. This ride was of course a maintenance nightmare, and after the state didn't require Cedar Point to fully tear down its trains following the short 2020 operating season, a piece of it flew off, tragically injuring a guest in line, as many of you know. This accident was absolutely unacceptable in this industry, and I completely understand why the park chose to move away from this ride. But that hydraulic launch with these Intamin T-bar restraints in the front row will always be a core memory for me. Next up at number 21, I have another Intamin roller coaster that used to have those awesomely freeing T-bar restraints, but now has horribly restrictive U-bricks. I'm of course talking about Superman the Ride at Six Flags New England. Now this coaster has one of the best layouts of all time, and if it had T-bars, it'd probably be in my top 10, or at least top 15. But these U-brick lap bars are massive, and while I didn't really find them to be painful, they just don't allow your body to move with any of the airtime, as your feet are glued down to the floor and your butt is glued to the seat. You can still feel some of these awesome airtime moments though, like on this camelback and on the final hills, but it's kind of a weird sensation, as you feel the pull on your upper body, but none of your body actually moves. I still love this coaster though, and the setting right next to the Connecticut River is so pretty. And the whole area around this ride is super cool, as you see the roller coaster traveling all around you. Also, as many of you know, the reason these restraints were changed was due to yet another tragic accident. But believe it or not, it was actually not the fault of the ride at all. Now, I don't typically talk about roller coaster accidents on this channel. This and the ladder coaster that we talked about are the only coasters on this list with a major accident. Because unfortunately, in 2011, a man who had cerebral palsy, a disorder which causes those who have it to have less control over muscles in their body, and in his case he should not have been able to ride because his leg muscles could not properly hold him into the lap bar restraint. Boarded the ride, which was of course against the ride's policy. The operators failed to notice this and failed to remove him from the ride. How exactly this happens bewilders me as a ride operator. Now, according to Google, he was in an electric scooter, which means he would have had to board through the exit. And this means that he would have had to have an alternate access pass, which should have told him that he wasn't able to ride this ride, as well as the operators that allowed him to board. Now, who exactly this is the fault of, being some employee in the park, either the ride operator or the person who issued the alternate access pass, I'm not one to point fingers here, but it is just a tragic accident, and it's something that families, especially those who have members with disabilities, should never have to worry about when doing something such as attending a theme park. And the safety of guests in those scenarios is always of utmost importance. Either way, this fatal accident caused the governor of Massachusetts at the time to ban the Intamin T-bar from the state. This issue is definitely a hot topic, and I don't want anyone to be offended by this because it is absolutely tragic. But I just want you to know that none of this occurred because the ride or Intamin T-bars are unsafe, but just because the operators failed to tell a man not to ride when he obviously should not have been. Alright, that was heavy, but we're done talking about accidents, and again, I assure you, roller coasters are incredibly safe. You're actually 750 million times more likely to get struck by lightning than to die on a roller coaster, and as an operator, I assure you that everything in Final Destination is not possible due to immense fail-safe systems. Okay, now to move on to my favorite roller coaster in the New England area. At number 20, we have Boulder Dash, the Custom Coasters International Wooden Coaster, located at Lake Compounce in Bristol, Connecticut. This is actually the oldest amusement park in the United States, and this coaster is absolutely their standout. Now, I know some of you might might be hung up on the fact that I said this was my favorite coaster in New England, and I know, Wicked Cyclone is probably better, but that ride was closed when I was at Six Flags New England, because apparently it's the one RMC that can't operate in the rain. Whatever. Anyways, Boulder Dash has one of the best settings of all time, being wedged into the side of a mountain, surrounded by trees, and as the name suggests, dashing over large boulders. I'm sure a night ride on this thing would be absolutely incredible, but I only got some rainy morning rides. This coaster builds up some awesome speed and has great pacing as it tears through its layout full of airtime pops and sharp laterals. But be warned, this thing does beat you up a little. There is a section with GCI's Steel Titan track at the beginning of the ride, which is super smooth and the transition is seamless. But I think it causes the second half of the ride to run faster than intended, and it definitely worsens the ride's potholes. The airtime on this ride is definitely not like RMC level ejector or anything. I'd say it's just floater airtime for the most part, but it is absolutely there, and the mix of all of these factors make it such a uniquely awesome roller coaster. Next up at number 19, I have my favorite B&M hyper, Diamondback at Kings Island. I love this ride so much. It absolutely is my favorite coaster in the park, and I know some of you won't understand this hype, but this is the ride that made me into a coaster enthusiast and got me over my fear of roller coasters. But still, nostalgia aside, this ride has by far the strongest and most sustained floater airtime of any roller coaster that I've ridden. And this year, I decided I'm tired of ranking it as low as the other hypers, because it is elite in my opinion. Now, I know a lot of you guys might credit this opinion to it being at my home park, and since it is my most ridden roller coaster of all time, maybe I've just really learned how to ride it and ridden it at its peak, but I often get stronger airtime on this ride than any of the other B&M hypers. Because of these longer staggered trains, the whip on the first drop and dropping off the first two camelbacks is ridiculous, and the back row, row 16, is where you'll always find me for that insane airtime. In my experience, it is super easy to get airtime room on this ride, and I've ridden this ride countless times with the 3-click, and it is a little scary. It is safe, do not fret, but if you have some airtime room during the first two camelbacks, you will be floating way off your seat with only your knees holding you in the restraint, and then slam down so hard into your seat once you land in the valley. Diamondback is pretty much the only coaster that I've ever ridden that's actually a little painful from how hard you slam down from that airtime, but don't worry, it's not bad or anything. I also love the use of the hilly terrain and how you leave the park to go out into the woods. The small camelbacks on the return run aren't as impressive, but with some airtime room, they do offer a little weak floater, and the splashdown is just a perfect ending. Oh, and of course to address the rattle, yes, it's there slightly in this valley, but it doesn't bother me at all. It's literally just a little bouncing, and if anything, it's just rattlesnake theming. Man, I love that ride. Next up, we're moving to Williamsburg, Virginia for my favorite Busch Gardens Williamsburg coaster, Pantheon, the Intamin multi-launch that opened in 2022. I loved marathoning this coaster because it just has a little bit of everything to offer. From that fun hangtime-filled zero-G roll, to the awesome swing launch section with a backwards ejector airtime hill, the sick backwards spike, fun top hat where you get awesome views of the beautiful landscape, a not too airtime-filled but still awesome outer bank, great zero-G stall, and an awesome sense of speed. This ride is a modern Intamin gem. The restraints definitely do come down on you, and you will likely have your feet pinned to the ground, which is a bit of a weird sensation for me as I like to physically rise up during airtime moments, but everything this coaster does is so much fun. This is definitely the standout coaster that Busch Gardens Williamsburg needed, and I hope to see many more of these Intamin multi-launches pop up around the world. At number 17, I have a much less dynamic coaster, consisting of literally just straight up and down hills. I'm talking about Phoenix at Knoebels in Ellisburg, Pennsylvania. Don't let this coaster's modest height of 78 feet or 24 meters fool you. It's the smoothest wooden coaster I've ever ridden, and these buzz bar restraints put you in for a wild experience. This is my favorite Philadelphia Toboggan Coasters or PTC coaster of all time, and it often wins the Golden Ticket Award for Best Wooden Coaster. Now, while I don't necessarily agree with that statement, I see where they're coming from. During most of the airtime hills in the first half, you'll get some pretty awesome floater airtime as you rise multiple inches up off your seat to this buzz bar restraint, and then the final run of hills, especially in the back row, offer ridiculous ejector airtime. The sensation of rising this far up off your seat and floating up against just a buzz bar is so unique, and I absolutely love it. I'm so glad Knoebels relocated and restored this coaster from Playland Park in Houston, Texas, renaming it from Rocket to Phoenix as it came back to life, which is just so cool in my opinion. I love the name Phoenix. At number 16 is a coaster that I haven't ridden since 2022, and I'm a little nervous to re-ride it as I've heard many say it no longer runs as good as it once did. I'm talking about Lightning Rod at Dollywood in Pigeon Forge, Tennessee, the once all-wooden RMC topper track coaster that is now mostly a steel iBox coaster. This ride used to have a launched lift hill up the side of the mountain, but it has since been replaced with a high-speed chain lift. Now while this is sad and not nearly as fun, it was absolutely needed due to the reliability issues the launch caused. But it is sad because the launch was really cool. From what I remember though, this coaster had an amazing sense of speed, ripping through the wooden mountain terrain, and some great standout moments like this wave turn and ejector airtime filled quad down finale. I do remember there being a few rough moments like this sharp pothole, and I've heard that airtime isn't quite as good as it once was. But this coaster is still incredible, and my night rides on it were insanely memorable. Narrowly cracking my top 15, I have a coaster that I rode for the first time in 2025. This is Top Thrill 2 at Cedar Point in Sandusky, Ohio, which was the tallest roller coaster all of 2025 until New Year's Eve, as Falcon's Flight in Saudi Arabia just snatched that record, obliterating Top Thrill 2's 420-foot spike and top hat with its 519-foot drop and 640-foot height. With that being said, Top Thrill 2, the Zamperla redo of Top Thrill Dragster, is absolutely incredible, and the more and more I rode it this season, the more I loved it. On Halloween, my friends and I made our final visit to Cedar Point, and this coaster just continued to blow me away. I love how these lap bars lock in place once you leave the station, meaning it won't come down on you during the ride, allowing you to feel the airtime, and trust me, there's airtime. The first launch at 74 miles per hour is fun but nothing too crazy. The second and backwards launch at 110 miles per hour is absolutely ridiculous. Going that fast backwards is such a unique feeling, and rising up into the spike offers some solid positive Gs, incredible views, and an awesome sense of weightlessness at the top. The final launch, reaching the original dragster speed of 120 miles per hour, is great, and since you're traveling at that speed for much longer than you were on the launch track of Dragster, it is really cool. In the front, this speed is life-changing. The snap up into the top hat has insane laterals, and if you're in the front, you'll get ejector airtime as you fly over the top hat, taking in the breathtaking views. In the back, you'll slow down over the crest and then get ejected out of your seat right about here, and then your butt does not hit the seat until you land at the bottom of the drop. This is probably my favorite drop in the world because the mix of laterals and ejector airtime is so insane, it's hard to process. Also, sit on the left side of the train if you can, because since the heart lining is off due to the trains being higher on the track than Dragster's original trains, the left side has mind-blowing laterals during the spiral drop due to its wider axis of rotation. If you want even more thoughts on this coaster, go check out my full review I have on this channel after this. For number 14, we have to travel all the way across the country to Six Flags Magic Mountain in Valencia, California for Twisted Colossus, the Mobius Loop RMC hybrid coaster. Now this means that you actually ride both sides of this coaster every single time, starting with the blue side and then hitting the brakes and climbing up the green lift hill for the second half of the ride. This is super cool and unique, and the ride has great moments of interaction between the two sides, but the problem is that it rarely lines up to duel. The crew has to dispatch trains pretty quickly to achieve this feat, but due to slow guests, the loose article bins, and guests that sometimes do not fit, it's pretty rare that they actually do this. I'm sure this ride would be amazing while dueling, but during all three of my rides, we did not get one. With that being said, this coaster still has incredible elements, and was running like a bat out of hell when I rode it. It had some of the strongest RMC airtime that I've experienced, which is not at all what I was expecting. The Top Gun stall is a sick element, and this 0G roll is surprisingly intense, offering upside down ejector airtime. Next up, at my number 13, I have a coaster that I know a lot of you guys regard to be one of the best in the world. I've seen a lot of lists where this ride is super high, but from my experience, I'd place it right here. I'm talking about El Toro at Six Flags Great Adventure in Jackson, New Jersey. This Intamin prefabricated wooden coaster is absolutely awesome. It is the tallest wooden roller coaster in the United States at 181 or 55 meters tall. This insane roller coaster offers one of the craziest drops in the back row, with maximum whip and two massive camelbacks with some of the strongest and most sustained ejector airtime I've ever felt on a roller coaster. The Rolling Thunder Hill also offers incredible ejector. The reason I don't have this ride any higher is because although the airtime is amazing on those elements, this turnaround, these smaller hills, and the end of the ride really don't do too much for me. Sure, they're cool moments, but they're not the most forceful, and this summer when I rode El Toro, it was running incredibly rough, so these moments were just kinda uncomfortable. This coaster jackhammered quite a bit, especially on these final turns, and my friend Ian, who actually had El Toro as his 100th coaster credit, swears he grayed out on this turn due to the insane jackhammering. Which is kinda funny because this roller coaster opened in 2006, the same year that I was born. So it kind of makes me feel a little old to see it running this rough, but at the same time, such an intense coaster as El Toro definitely needs consistent retracking, and hopefully in future years it rides smoother as they retrack it. I love this ride, don't get me wrong. Like I said, it was my most ridden coaster of 2025 with 33 rides, around 20 or 21 of them coming from our second day at Great Adventure alone. And for the last hour of that day, we rode it 16 times in a row without even leaving the station once. That experience was awesome, and shout out to the crew for allowing us to do that, but man was that headache brutal. We also had bruises on our thighs, and that's how you know that airtime is amazing. At my number 12 spot, I have yet another Intamin roller coaster, being the Intamin Blitz Maverick at Cedar Point. This small but mighty coaster is only 105 feet or 32 meters tall, but it packs some of the most variety into a coaster that I've ever seen. It has a launched lift hill, beyond vertical 95-degree drop, some positive G-filled S-turns with rapid moments of airtime during those transitions, incredible ejector airtime on this hill, an amazing tunnel launch, and these insanely whippy stangle dives filled with sharp lateral airtime. Oh, and don't even get me started on this drop in the back row. It feels like you are suddenly yanked over it as it tries to send you flying up into the sky, and before you know it, you're rapidly turning to the right. It's incredible. It might not be as big as El Toro's drop, but I actually prefer Maverick's drop in the back row. It may not have as many intense moments of ejector airtime as El Toro either, but it is much more comfortable, has way more variety, and has no dead moments for me. I love this ride so much that I actually influenced my family to name our dog after it. And it ended up being a really fitting name, because for the few of you watching this who have met my dog, you know that he's small but also pretty aggressive, just like this coaster. Now, just narrowly missing my top 10 at number 11 is another small but mighty roller coaster, Twisted Timbers at Kings Dominion in Doswell, Virginia. This RMC iBox hybrid conversion of Hurler, a pretty bad wooden coaster, is now an awesome ejector airtime filled ride. Now, we'll get to this ride in a moment, but if you're familiar with the quick but small nature of Steel Vengeance's second half at Cedar Point, this coaster feels a lot like that. The 109-foot or 33-meter barrel roll down drop is pretty much just like the one on Wind Chaser, so it's great, although I did find this one to be a little less floaty and a little more whippy. This run of 3 camelbacks offers great sustained ejector airtime. The inversions are all flowy and fun. I love this trick track double up, and this Outer Bank hill is pure RMC bliss. Every second of this ride is awesome. I have no complaints. Starting off my top 10, we have the best Intamin hypercoaster that I've ridden, Skyrush at Hershey Park. I rode this ride for the first time this summer, so I never experienced the old restraints, but I will say the new ones do not hurt. They just come down incredibly tight at the bottom of the first drop. I do, however, love how they pop up a little on the brake run to make it more comfortable. This coaster isn't the longest, but it is insanely intense the entire ride. This ride has ridiculous G-force reversals, meaning how fast it goes from gray out causing positive G-forces to some of the sharpest ejector airtime or negative G-forces in the world. Now, I've heard plenty of people say that the first drop feels like a car crash, and I didn't exactly know what to expect from that, but my goodness, it really does. And as weird as it sounds, in the best way possible. The speed of that cable lift sends you flying over that 200-foot or 61-meter drop at a very steep 85 degrees. Now, at the start of the drop, you'll already be out of your seat from pretty good ejector airtime, but then in the middle of the drop, for some reason, there's this sharp hitch, where the airtime just suddenly gets really strong. It's like you're already getting ejector airtime, and then midway through the drop, the ejector just amplifies to be even stronger. I'm not entirely sure why this happens, but it is definitely the most intense and unique drop, other than Top Thrill 2s, that I've experienced. I do wish I could experience the airtime hills on this ride not fully stapled, but they're still awesome, and this coaster is pretty smooth, although it can rattle a little bit on the wing seats. If you get the chance, definitely ride the back left seat, because the way that you take the elements provides the most intense experience. It's awesome. The quick nature of this ride's pacing makes it kind of hard to take it all in, because all of these super intense elements happen so fast back to back. So in the future, when I get more rides on this coaster, I could foresee it rising up even higher, but from what I remember, I'm going to keep it right here at number 10. For number 9, we're staying in the great coaster state of Pennsylvania, but this time going down to Pittsburgh for Phantom's Revenge at Kennywood. Now, yes, Skyrush is a lot more intense, but I found Phantoms to be an overall slightly more enjoyable ride experience. This coaster has by far my favorite lap bars that I've ever experienced, as they're super unrestrictive, and even if it's all the way down, it won't fully rest on your lap. This, mixed with the insanely strong ejector airtime this coaster offers once warmed up, leads to an insanely fun experience. The tallest drop on this ride is actually the second hill, as it drops from 160 feet or 49 meters in the air down 220 feet or 67 meters. Bro, why does that number sneak in every time? Down into a ravine, and the sense of speed here is just phenomenal. The first half is more about speed and a little positive G-forces, and then the second is an ejector airtime filled masterclass, where your butt will be repeatedly thrown off the seat. This is probably the smoothest coaster I've ever ridden as well, which is just insane, as this used to be an aero looper converted because it was so rough. D.H. Morgan did an incredible job converting this ride, and I really wish we saw them do it with more of the aero loopers in the country. Coming in at number 8 is the CCI masterpiece, Ghost Rider at Knott's Berry Farm. Now, this ride used to be known for being pretty rough, but in 2015 it was completely retracked by GCI, and now the ride is basically glass smooth. It now runs with Millennium Flyer trains as well, which if you've ridden a GCI, you know the clicks on these restraints are pretty big, meaning you can usually get some good room for airtime. And oh boy, does this ride have airtime. Some of you might be surprised to see Ghost Rider this high on my list, but man is it a perfect coaster. This massive woody is the perfect mixture of strong lateral g-forces and sustained floater airtime. The massive first half is great, but once you hit this section that used to be a former block break that you now just glide through, if seated towards the back, you get an awesome dose of flowjector airtime and dive into the amazingly paced second half. It is incredibly rare that the second half of a roller coaster is better than the first, and while I'd say that that does apply for Phantom's Revenge, funny enough, it absolutely applies for Ghost Rider, and I do think Ghost Rider has more to offer overall than Phantom's Revenge. The laterals and airtime pops are ridiculous as you roar through this overly supported structure, which exists in this fashion as a failsafe for the San Andreas Fault earthquakes. This dense structure is actually awesome because in the second half, you ride through this similarly to how you ride through the structure on Steel Vengeance, and it is just so awesome. This leads to great night rides because when you're flying through the structure, you really can't see anything around you. This dense structure, along with this sick orange LED strip lining the whole ride, just really adds to those night rides. This coaster has a mixture of world-class forces, and I honestly wouldn't change a thing about it. I cannot wait to get back out to California to ride this again sometime. Next up, at number 7, is one of my favorite roller coasters to marathon, as it is just pure fun. Now, I have multiple friends, including my friend Noah, who ranks this ride as their number 1, and I definitely understand why. I'm talking about Fury 325, B&M's masterpiece of a giga coaster located at Carowinds in both North and South Carolina. This is the coaster that I wish Orion was, offering that same airtime-filled drop that is obviously 325 feet tall and features a 320-foot or 98-meter drop that seems to just last forever. Now, instead of having larger drawn-out elements, Fury stays much lower to the ground, keeping you at those giga coaster speeds for much longer. In the front row, the sense of speed is ridiculous, racing around the park entrance at 95 miles per hour or 153 kilometers per hour. I love these quick turns because they offer little pops of floater airtime, especially on the left side of the train, as that's the magic seat in my opinion. With the freedom of these clamshell restraints, you can really contort your body leaning around on these turns, which is a super cool experience. This coaster is also ridiculously long, featuring 6,602 feet or 2,012 meters of track, which makes Fury the longest steel roller coaster in the Western Hemisphere, and of course all of the United States. The return run also has some awesome airtime hills, and like I said, this coaster is just pure fun. I really love everything about it. Okay, now moving into my top 6, we have 6 roller coasters that I love almost equally. In the making of this video, I spent over 3 hours trying to accurately place these rides because I'm indecisive and just kept going back and forth. But that really does just show how good these coasters are. Next season, I'm sure some of this will change, but as of the end of 2025, this is what I landed on for my top 6. Number 6 is a Rocky Mountain Construction hybrid coaster that opened in 2023, Wildcat's Revenge at Hershey Park in Pennsylvania. This coaster was the Iron Horse conversion of Wildcat, the first GCI roller coaster that was known for being pretty rough. RMC did a legendary job with this ride, offering a mixture of some of the best elements I've ever experienced. From this 4-second sustained ejector airtime hill, to this awesome wave turn, 0G stall, great abrupt moments of sharp airtime, and my favorite part, this legendary unbanked double down. This double down turns to the left with minimal banking, so whilst you're out of your seat for the 2 ejector airtime pops, you're also pinned to the left of the train with great laterals. This ride is a little shorter than some of the top RMCs, with 3,510 feet or 1,070 meters of track, but it honestly doesn't need any more because every element is straight balls to the wall insanity. I also love the handles that are on these lap bars because you can just lightly push your hands on them and then the lap bars won't come down on you at all during the ride, making it super easy to experience the power of this airtime, just as the amazing coaster designer Joe Draves intended, and Joe Draves absolutely cooked with this ride. Okay, I feel like I've said this a handful of times now, but at both number 5 and 4, I have a pair of coasters that many people probably place higher on their lists. In fact, many people put these 2 coasters at their number 1 spot. At number 5 is the Voyage at Holiday World in Santa Claus, Indiana. This coaster is Gravity Group's magnum opus, boasting a ridiculous layout full of airtime hills and lateral g-forces across 6,442 feet or 1,964 meters of track, making this ride ridiculously long. Now, I've always said that this ride feels like the intensity and dynamic layout of a ride like Mystic Timbers at Kings Island, with the length and wooded setting of the Beast also at Kings Island. This ride is pretty smooth as Holiday World and Gravity Group work very hard to maintain it, but it does have a few potholes. Now, don't go in expecting ejector airtime, because unless you get a trimless night ride during their coaster event Hollywood Nights, which I've heard has ejector airtime on these hills in the tunnel, then this ride just offers float or airtime, but the abundance of it is amazing. This ride's layout is so cool, offering massive airtime hills in the first half, a fast-paced twister section in the middle, and an incredibly intensifying return run down the hill. And while I prefer the insane nature of the 4 coasters ahead of it slightly, I can't blame anyone for putting this coaster at number 1. It's just so unique. Oh, and the amazing night rides through the woods are absolutely my favorite night ride on any coaster that I've ridden. At number 4, I have Steel Vengeance at Cedar Point, Alan Schulke's crown jewel and the longest RMC hybrid coaster. This Iron Horse conversion of the legendarily terrible Mean Streak took one of the most boring coasters of all time and turned it into one of the best. Now this year is the first year where this coaster hasn't ranked number 1 for me since 2021 when I first rode it, but the 3 ahead of it were all new credits for me this season. Steel Vengeance's length is insane, boasting the most airtime on any coaster as you'll spend 27 seconds out of your seat through its 5,740 foot or 1,750 meter track length. Now this ride is a little repetitive as most elements are just quick ejector airtime hills, and that's why I prefer the uniqueness of the 3 coasters ahead of it, but do not get me wrong, I love the ejector airtime on this thing. The massive first drop, snappy top hat, and massive outer banked airtime hill are all great. The flowy inversions slap, and I love the final lap through the ride structure. The setting on the lake is also great. I mean, this ride is just pure coaster enthusiast bliss, and I will always make sure I get to Cedar Point to ride this as well as all their other amazing coasters. Next up at number 3, I have the coaster that was absolutely the hardest for me to rank. This is X2 at Six Flags Magic Mountain. Now I know I said Steel Vengeance was Alan Schulke's crown jewel, and to him it absolutely is, but to me it's X2. This 200 foot or 61 meter 4th dimension coaster pretty much single-handedly killed the legendary aerodynamics, sending the super influential coaster manufacturer into bankruptcy. This coaster may not have as much airtime, so I understand why a lot of you airtime lovers often place it below the previous few rides, but the rotating seats offer a coaster experience that nothing on Earth can match, except of course the 2 even more extreme versions of this ride that are built in Asia by S&S. Dropping down a hyper coaster drop 200 feet facing the ground and then doing a front flip right before you slam into the ground is by far the best and most mental moment on any roller coaster I've ever experienced. X2 is the only coaster that genuinely terrified me and still scared me each time that we dropped onto that pre-lift for a re-ride. The whole ride is full of ridiculously disorienting moments, some awesome positive G-forces, a little bit of airtime, and just the way that you're yanked through these elements, flipping all around, is unmatched by any other amusement ride. I mean, just listen to me from this clip on my first ride.
God! Oh! What? What? What is happening?
Yeah, I got off it and called it my number 1 coaster, but after getting over that recency bias, I realized that there are 2 coasters I think aren't quite as insane, but do offer an insane mixture of even better G-forces, and that's why I have them ahead. Coming in at my number 2 spot, I have the positive G-force monster Pantherian at King's Dominion, formerly known as Intimidator 305, before the rights to the Dale Earnhardt theming was lost. Now to me, X2 is the most intense roller coaster in the United States, but Pantherian does have more sustained positive G-forces. This is my favorite Giga coaster, coming in at 305 feet tall with a 300 foot or 91 meter drop that leads right into this low to the ground turn where you'll feel the full force of that 90 miles per hour or 145 kilometers per hour. This turn has often been nicknamed the blackout turn because originally it was famous for making guests black out. And in I-305's opening season, it was reprofiled, making the turn wider and start ascending quicker. So it doesn't really cause you to gray out anymore, but it still absolutely causes the most insane gray out I've ever experienced on a roller coaster. Now graying out is kind of a sweet spot where you start to black out but don't actually lose consciousness. You just kind of lose your vision a little bit. I always saw stars on this turn, and I'd find myself either blinking to keep my vision while I started to lose what was in my peripherals, or after a few rides, if you don't blink and just relax, it started to get pretty dark. Now this may sound terrifying to those of you who haven't ridden this coaster, but as the positive G-forces pin your body back to the seat, some of the blood in your brain just temporarily rushes down to your legs, and this causes your vision to become less clear due to the less oxygen available. That might sound even more terrifying, but Pantherian reaches positives up to 4.5 Gs, which is about as high as roller coasters get, but trust me, that is well within the safe and comfortable range to experience for just a few seconds like you do on Pantherian. This is designed into the ride by the coaster manufacturers and wouldn't be there if it wasn't safe. Also, millions and millions of people ride this coaster and are completely fine. This is just one of those sensations that you feel on a roller coaster, and maybe may be too much for some people. If anything, I find this sensation to be wildly cool because it is just so rare to actually experience it in this fashion on a roller coaster. This massive airtime hill has incredible sustained airtime. Following it, I often grade out right here, and then the ride stays so low to the ground, allowing you to keep feeling that giga coaster speed. It has some of these quick Maverick style S-bends where you rapidly whip from one side of the other, getting a pop of ejector airtime in the middle of the turn whilst traveling at a rapid speed. This coaster is just so intense, so unique, and has some of the best airtime moments and sense of speed on any ride I've yet to ride. Now, at the one day I was at King's Dominion, I never did get a front row ride or a night ride on this, so when I eventually make it back to King's Dominion, I could see this thing rising up to number 1. But for now, my number 1 favorite roller coaster is Goliath, the Gia Vanola Hypercoaster at Six Flags Magic Mountain. Oh man, I had some of you guys mad for a second. I'm joking, obviously. That pretty forceless ride is my number 79. My real number 1 coaster is Air Force One at Fun Spot America, Atlanta. Air may not be the tallest, longest, or fastest coaster on this list, let alone RMC on this list, but it truly is the perfect roller coaster in my opinion, and let me explain why. This very new park opened in 2017, but was put on the map when the standout investment of a coaster opened in March 2023, and Fun Spot is basically a glorified fair with an insane roller coaster. It's named after John Airey Sr., the late founder of Fun Spot America, who had a lifelong passion for all things airplane related. This ride actually has some sick theming that I was not expecting, and has, in my opinion, the most well-rounded layout of any coaster on this list.
And one of the main reasons I put this at number 1 and above rides like Steel Vengeance is because much like X2 and Pantherian, Air Force One just had my heart racing the entire ride, and even more than those two. My friends that were with me on this trip can attest to this, but I was literally shaking after getting off each ride, and hitting the brakes on Air Force One, my heart would just be absolutely racing. And this would continue all the way until we'd walk back around and sit back in the seat, and my heart would still be beating so fast, because this ride is just so intense and throws so much at you non-stop.
The 146-foot or 45-meter drop is honestly the most forgettable part of the ride, but it is still amazing. This coaster has the longest and best zero-G stall in the United States, and this insane Outer Bank hill that offers 4 seconds of sustained ejector airtime, and it's honestly better than the one on Steel Vengeance in my opinion. Air Force One also offers a powerful double up, with this second hill offering El Toro level sustained ejector, the entire crest and descent. Following this is the amazingly whippy arcade roll that is probably my favorite inversion on any coaster, followed by some good positive G-forces on this turn, and an insane ending run of airtime hills with some of the strongest airtime on any roller coaster. These bunny hills put the ending of Steel Vengeance to death, and by the end of our 9-ride marathon at the end of our night, my thighs were definitely starting to hurt. It's so easy to get airtime room on this coaster because the crew does not staple whatsoever. The power of every element on this ride is insanely better than any RMC that I've ridden for some reason, and I love the color scheme. Oh, and the best part of it all, this coaster basically never has a line, so you can just lap it over and over again. I also don't remember if I mentioned this, but this coaster is completely steel. Even though it looks like the structure is wood, it is made of steel, since this coaster was completely ground up. If you've never gotten down to Fun Spot Atlanta, definitely get out there and ride this ride. It is so fun. With that, we have come to the end of my top 50 roller coasters. Thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Do you guys agree with me? Are you absolutely enraged by my opinions on these giant thrill machines? Were there any rides missing that you think should have been on here, or that I need to try to get on soon? Let me know all your thoughts. If you guys enjoyed this or found it entertaining or informative, make sure to drop a like below and subscribe for way more coaster content. I filmed vlogs at every single one of these parks that I went to this year, and I haven't even posted most of them, so if you guys want to check those out, please subscribe, and I'll be trying to post them weekly. And if you haven't already seen part 1 of this video, make sure you go check it out if you want to. I hope you guys all have an incredible day, stay positive, keep riding coasters, and I will see you in the next one. Peace!